That's all I be sure at the whole squad. It's the last time we're in town. Sure. I've said that 3 times. This is like, it's not. So I actually had last time. No, last week. I had you're right on the. You're right on the. Yes. Right? It's kind of right around there, a little farther up there. But as you go in, you're getting into the. I haven't seen much. They're not going to hear from them, so don't go far. You do the model. They're not voting on it. They work in the board seats. So if they're here, sit back. You need to see. Go around the other way. Yes.
Okay, folks. 7 o'clock. Call to order the April 22nd meeting of Woodstock Town Board. This is our business meeting. So first order of business.
Are there lights? As in?
No, the microphones over there. Stand, so let's play.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bill McKenna.
So. So, before we get rolling here, I just wanted to poll the board on a couple of things. I sent some emails out, and we've had some conversations. The first topic, the youth center. So the task force is eager to hear back how we want to move forward with that. We've got a couple of options. I've talked with a couple of you about that. With task force, I talked about having two options. One to replace the youth center itself, and the second one is the grander plan 1B, which includes an addition onto the community center for the seniors and the ball fields and whatnot. They broke that down into two parts of 5.4 million and 5.2 million, I think, just around 11 million altogether. I had talked to a couple of you, I forget who now, about possibly doing a smaller version of the youth center, replacing what's there in its location, having that as one vote, and having then the $11 million version as the second vote in the bonds. Any thoughts on that and how you want to proceed? You want to think about it, you want to get back to me, but I would like to get them an answer.
Okay, so the thought that I had was I have had people contact me and say, we really do want to know. The original thought was, what do we do about the youth center building itself? And I think a lot of people believe that it can't, repairing is not really the best solution. It would be a tear down and a rebuild. And I had people contact me and say, we want to know what that choice looks like. So I do believe that we owe it to the people of Woodstock to tell them what that choice looks like. And then the vote would then have that as a choice. I know you and I talked about, is the other choice the whole thing smacked together, or the task force did propose we can do part of it and then do, say, the senior center as a second part. And I know you had said to me you thought that it would be too convoluted to try to do a 3-part vote, but a 3-part vote kind of what does make sense to me, because one choice would be we just want to do something with the youth center building. One choice would be the first phase of what the youth center task force proposed. And then the other choice would be you do that other piece. So I'm actually in favor of a 3-part vote. Knowing what it looks like to just replace the youth center as one of the parts of the vote, and then the other 2 parts of the vote be what was proposed by the youth center task force.
Okay.
And because, again, it's because I've heard people get back to me and say they're concerned with only seeing the grander scheme. What does it look like to do the smaller piece?
So the smaller piece would be to
Just
replace
deal
the
with
youth center roughly the same size that it is.
And people deserve that as a choice, and I think we ought to do what people have to say about that choice.
Okay. Bennett, any thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to see a proposal for a new youth center. And that was what I wanted to see, but that's not what we got. And actually, what I think that Finney has done. Right now isn't what we really want to look at. What we want to look at is, what would a youth center look like? Right there, a youth center, not, oh, if you cut it in half, you just get half a sandwich. I mean, I looked at the part A and part B, like. The $5 million plan has an $888,000 contingency. I'm like, what? Like, I was kind of thinking, maybe this was a $2.5, $3 million project. I mean, not $5 million, not $888,000 of it being a contingency. I don't think we're ready to put anything on any ballot right now. So no vote.
But you would like to explore replacing the youth center, that roughly the size it is, maybe a little
I
bigger.
don't dislike the people that were hired to do this. I would just like them to imagine a $3.5 million youth center. I mean, I think they do good work. It looked great. I mean, there were some amazing things, but we still haven't got what I want.
Really enough?
I'm in agreement, I'd like to see a different proposal with what Bennett was talking about.
So again, here.
And let me ask you, are you both open to the idea of having a 2-point vote where we vote for, say, a $2.5 million replacement of the existing building and then the bigger option?
Gotta tell you, I don't think that we need the bigger option. I think what we need to do is first do something about the youth center. And then let's look and see what else is there to do. What does the economy look like? How much in the how bad are things economically? We're asking people.
We have to prioritize, I think, so, and youth center definitely needs to be looked at, so,
Just for a youth center.
right.
Okay. And then what?
I think that building in place is a very doable project. I think that given our current circumstances, and just the situation that we've got going on in our country, that spending that much money would be very concerning to me. I also, I'm in favor of building in place. I think we've got a framework for down the road and we can revisit that. I also would like to see program and operational costs to be factored in. Even if it's an estimate at this point in time, so that we know what we're committing to, we can actually support and maintain. And pay people an appropriate wage for working inside of that youth center. And providing wonderful programs, hopefully including job opportunities.
Yeah, I would like to say one more thing if I may, and I really appreciate the work the task force did, and I love the vision that they provided and produced. And I know the board is indicating, let's just look at the build in place. My preference is to let the people of Woodstock decide, add that as a choice, and see if the people of Woodstock want the other choice, because the youth center task force did a fabulous job on a vision. It's a lovely vision. And I'd like to see the people of Woodstock get to weigh in.
Sound ordinance. So, I know a few people have come here tonight. It's not on the agenda tonight, other than I wanted to just poll the board and see. I know you've each had some conversations with the task force and get your sense of whether you're ready to move forward. And if so, then I'm scheduled to reopen the public hearing at our next town board meeting and possibly move to adopt something. Related, you're
Yeah, I'm ready, I'm ready to do it.
okay. Bennett, you're
I'm ready to go. I'd like to hear from the task force.
Yeah, I am ready. I do think where we landed here, it's gonna work for some venues. I know there's at least one venue who I believe will be asking for another night's worth of music, but I think that we should take it to the people again and see what they think. I did find 2 typos. They incorporated a lot of my substantive comments, and I just have 2 kind of typos left, but I can share
good
those.
share those with each member.
Yeah.
And then Lula.
So you're asking if we think that this language is ready to go to the public. And I first want to thank the Sound Task Force along with the Youth Task Force for their work, particularly in this case, Julie, who reached out many times. I had asked for 4 changes. I wanted the language to be clearer about recognizing busking. I wanted for the drum circle to be protected and memorialized. After speaking to residents and owners of smaller venues, I had requested that amplified music be extended to Thursdays and on Fridays to be extended until 10 PM, not 9 PM. I'm one of those people who care deeply about quiet in our town, and I do support that lower decibel level. And I think that the decibel level will help neighbors feel at peace. But at these lower levels, I think it's reasonable to allow music on Fridays and Saturdays until 10 PM, not 9, and not just in July and August, but in additional months as well. I understand that sound travels more when the trees are bare, but we still, in my opinion, need to explore a longer season that reflects the rhythm of our town. And so because that balance is still not quite there, I'm a no. They don't support this right now.
Did you support hearing from the people on it?
Well, the majority want to move forward with the public hearing. So folks, any of you interested in the noise ordinance, we will be, no. If you're interested, we'll be putting it on the agenda for the 13th of May.
Can you post it? How do you know that?
The
Yeah, that's
document
the
is
first
on,
one.
but yeah, we'll get it up.
Yeah.
And the reason to prioritize it is because the summer season is coming up. These venues rely on that, and the artists themselves rely on
Absolutely.
the ability to be able to perform, so we want to also have that balance.
Okay,
Thank you, it's my livelihood. Is there something that I could read and all artists and musicians on the site, and where is the task force?
call tomorrow and we can give the
Can you tell
information.
me? today?
It's on the TB meeting documents page under documents. It's the second document under documents.
Okay, I'm going to need somebody to help me out. with
So
that.
call
Okay.
tomorrow and we can help you out.
Okay.
But I
Thank you,
came here
Jerry.
tonight to know about it. Excuse me, with all due respect, it seems like I came here when the sound ordinance was being reviewed 5 or 6 years ago with Paul Schultz. Nobody told me anything, and I was completely
Okay.
told
We'll-
not, I understand.
Jerry,
how
we'll talk about-
going on. And it
We'll
was
talk about it
the
tomorrow.
same thing happened to me about this way. Nobody gave me any
Thank
information.
you, Jerry.
Right, treating out here.
The franchise agreements,
Send-
Maria-Elena, the Spectrum franchise agreements, I sent that about a month ago. Do you have comments, concerns, thoughts?
I don't have any comments.
So you would be ready to move forward with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. I'll get back to Bennett. Laura,
Would be nice if I had an answer. I'll answer you tomorrow.
okay. Anula,
I'm good with it.
okay. And Bennett, the franchise agreement. Comfortable with the agreement?
Yeah.
You good with that? Okay, so I'll move to prepare it for adoption at our next meeting. Laura, if you have any questions, you can get back. And actually just email the group.
Okay, okay.
Okay, and last topic before we get to resolutions, the arts funding. You recall, in December, we set aside $40,000 for local arts organizations from the ARP money. And we had talked about coming up with a criteria for dispensing with that money. So, does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I have an update.
Okay.
I've been working on an application and also want to make a recommendation that in fact, the town board is not the first line of decision-making, that in fact, we, supervisor, I would request that you put together a small group of artists to go through and look at the applications that come in and make a recommendation to the town board as to which groups should get funded for their arts needs.
And
I'll get that to you tomorrow.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I guess my thought is you probably on the group want to have more than just artists, because each artist will probably have. Yeah, and I don't mean to be derogatory, but each artist might have their own interest in art,
Slightly.
and so you might want to have some 100% neutral people in the mix too, to be part of the conversation. So that,
It would be nice if the sound ordinance task force had looked like that.
Yes.
Some representatives of the arts
Thank you.
community, some neutral people instead of people with an
Bennett,
accent.
do you have
Thank you, Michael.
any thoughts on the art funding?
Yeah, I think that we ought to put together a committee of artists and townspeople, and they should decide how they would recommend to the town board that the money be spent.
So we do the paperwork. You agree with the committee as well,
I do in the application, I like to use application.
and you would say you have the application
I'll
ready?
have it to you tomorrow. I can send it to the whole town board for feedback.
Yeah, perfect. And Maria-Elena,
I've been on board for this for a few years now, so yeah, it's important. The arts, especially arts nonprofits of this town, need our support, absolutely.
perfect.
I have a question. Would that include people who are interested in seeing murals going up in town?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, gonna get to some resolutions. So this first resolution, we did a similar one last year. This is in support of a Senate and Assembly bill regarding packaging, plastic packaging. The bill floundered last year, didn't get passed. It's back on the slate for this year with some slightly new numbers. Senate bill and an Assembly bill. So let me read this. Where's packaging, and actually, is Judge Schwartz here?
Oh, I just work, no.
Joe, do you want to get up and speak for a minute to this?
Sure. So I'm here as a member of Citizens Concerned About Plastic Pollution. We're an Ulster-based affiliate of Beyond Plastics. Some of you may know Beyond Plastics. Anyway, there's a very important piece of legislation that's up before the New York State Legislature. It was carried over from last year because unfortunately it didn't pass. It didn't get through the assembly. So it's been reintroduced, it has new bill numbers, and there's some differences, including, I think the biggest one is that the percentage of reduction went from 50% to 30%, which is kind of a bummer. And it includes all packaging, it's not just plastic, but plastic is, I think, our biggest concern. It's also cardboard, glass, and metal. But if this bill passes, it has the potential to be like the most effective, comprehensive bill in the country. So it would be like, I'm sorry, it would be leading the way.
That's still a plus.
So yeah, and some of the chemicals have been reduced. One of the big components of the bill is to reduce the toxic chemicals. So they went from 19 to 17, but they include all kinds of harmful chemicals, benzene, toluene, PFAS, all of the baddies will be included in the bill.
Excellent.
It's great. So if you have any questions, any other questions, I'm just happy to answer.
Yeah, are you part of a group or organization? Could you
Yes.
tell me a little bit about it?
Sure, we're Citizens Concerned About Plastic Pollution. We're locally based, Woodstock, Kingston, Rosendale, our group is expanding. We're all volunteers. We're working, as I said, we're an affiliated Beyond Plastics, so we work on behalf of them. We do working on legislation. We're going to Albany on May 7th, if anyone's available to come up to rally in favor of this bill. Sorry, I don't know if that was appropriate, but
That's what we're here for.
we do tabling events, we work in schools, we work with students, we do educational programs. We just had an event, a film at the Woodstock Jewish congregation, sponsored by the Land Conservancy. So we're film screenings, so we have our fingers in all different arenas. Yeah.
Actually, you reminded me, because we have Earth Day coming up this Saturday.
That's
Did you
great.
want to address it, or Aaron, do you want to?
Sure. So did you have any questions for?
I think we're good with that. I'll read the resolution in a minute, but while we're on the topic, we've got Earth, and you'll be at Earth Day, correct?
Yes, so yeah, Citizens Concerned for Plastic will be at London Table. So Earth Day this year, today's Earth Day, actually, happy Earth Day. It's gonna be this Saturday at the, at both the youth center and the community center. We're partnering again with the youth center at 11 o'clock. You can go there. They will provide you with, I think, gloves and vests, and you can pick up trash around Woodstock. And then at 1 o'clock, back at the community center for refreshments. And 1:30, we're gonna have presentations. And actually, your group, I think Joe is actually gonna do a presentation as well as some other people. And one that many of you might be interested in is the Complete Streets Committee is gonna talk about some funding that they're looking at to get us sidewalks and the projects that they're working on, which I know everybody's really invested in that. So the flyers on the town website, so go ahead and reach out to it and go ahead and reach out and look at it. And if you have any questions, the information is on the flyer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the Bear Task Force will be there too.
Yes, the Bear Task Force will be there.
Excellent. So be a nice lineup. Whereas packaging made up approximately 40% of the waste in New York State, and whereas managing packaging waste costs New York taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars annually, and whereas most packaging is not recyclable or reusable, packaging systems are not readily available. And whereas plastic causes serious pollution, including litter and use of toxic chemicals. And whereas companies that produce packaging should be responsible for the cost of managing packaging waste. And whereas enacting the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act was drafted in New York Assembly Bill A1749, New York State Bill S1749 would reduce waste, increase recycling rates, create jobs, reduce toxicity in packaging, provide billions of dollars in savings to local governments and taxpayers, and lower greenhouse gas emissions. Be it resolved, the town of Woodstock urges New York State Legislature to pass and Governor Kathy Hochul to sign into law strong and effective packaging resolution and recycling infrastructure act assembly bill 1749, Senate bill 1464. I'm sorry, I got that mixed up in the last one. And be it further resolved that New York, the town of Woodstock shall forward copies of this resolution to Governor Kathy Hochul, New York Assembly Speaker Carl Hasty, New York State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, Senator Michelle Hinchy, and Assembly Member Sarah Hannah Saraka.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved. I'm just gonna vote that. And five. Be it resolved to accept minutes for meetings held on March 11th, April 2nd, April 3rd, and April 8th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved to accept the town clerk's report.
Second.
All in favor? Resolved to authorize payments of $400 in the amount of $323,900.97.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved to increase the non-resident senior rep fee, card fee to $3 per, $3 per class effective May 1st, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved to approve 2025 Highway 284 agreements. You all got a copy of this. This is the work that Superintendent Allen is proposed to do for this year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll have a copy of that if you could each stop tomorrow at the office to sign that. We each have to sign it. Perfect. Whereas J Mala LLC, 45 Mill Hill Road, Woodstock, New York, 12498 is in compliance with the Alcohol Beverage Control Law, section 64, subdivision 2A, is notified this municipality of their intent to file applications for liquor license with New York State Liquor Authority. And whereas this property is currently in compliance with all local laws and does not have any violations at this time, therefore be it resolved, the town of Woodstock waives its right to a 30-day hold and consents to the processing and issuance of the aforesaid license.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved, Woodstock Town Board is hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 to be recognized as National Arbor Day in the town of Woodstock.
Second.
All in favor? Be resolved to hire P. Linda Mancuso as part-time clerk, town clerk at an hourly rate of $25.69 effective April 7th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so with that, I am going to move to open the public hearing on the zoning and subdivision amendments. What we have talked about doing, this is pretty big documents, so we've talked about reducing it a little bit in conversation. And tonight, we're going to focus on any comments to the amendments to the subdivision law, which is chapter 202. Next, we're going to skip next month, May, but we will be coming forward with the rest of the schedule. So June, July, August, and possibly September, we will outline what areas of the amendments we're gonna be talking about. So with that, I reopen the hearing, and is there anybody, we're gonna limit it to 2 minutes, we're gonna go around and then we'll come back, and so we'll start in the front row. Sarah, John, Sarah, did you want to talk about the subdivision?
I mean, I can make a general statement about what I've said. So I'll just repeat myself,
Okay,
that I don't think anyone should be put in the position of being a sitting board member and also the chair of a committee, because that is where decisions are made and to be presented to our board. And when we look at how decisions have been made,
but do you have comments with regard to the?
this is very important, and honestly, when.
No, but this is a public hearing on chapter 202, so that's specifically what we're talking about.
It directly affects it though.
Well, and I need to weigh in. So this piece of work was brought in by the Housing Oversight Task Force, which was co-chaired by Deborah Dewan and Kurt Ritchie. So I was on that committee. I was not a co-chair of the committee that brought these changes forward.
I attend many of these meetings and I've heard Deb's comments as well. I hear your, like, you know, I don't know who's doing it. I really hope it's not someone who's running.
Next, John, did you have some comments?
Yes,
Perfect timing.
thank you. I didn't time it, but I have these 2 pages. I hope I can get through it in 2 minutes.
It's tough.
One of the reasons we're told for replacing our zoning law and subdivision regulations is to bring affordable housing to Woodstock. I'd like to address that. It's been said by many people that the only way to solve our affordable housing crisis is to actually build more affordable housing. We have an example of that in the Woodstock Commons development that was built in 2013. And I applaud the town board for the current effort to explore possibilities for building on town-owned land. The proposed subdivision regulations that are the subject of this public hearing contain the word affordable 18 times. It says affordable housing 7 times. It says affordable units 6 times. What's missing in the subdivision regulations and in the zoning proposal that we'll talk about at another hearing is any mention of how that goal of affordable will be achieved. There are no teeth in the law. Woodstock is a small town, too small to have a housing authority, as Kingston has. The authority in Woodstock is sitting right here, the town board. It's implied but not stated that the town board will be the authority that applies a means test to certain home sales and rentals. That is to investigate a prospective buyers or renters' finances to ensure that they're qualified to receive the benefit of an affordable home. I don't see any other way to look at it. Somebody has to perform that function. Would it be the building inspector, the town clerk? If we're building more units and we're allowing them to be sold to the highest bidder, then what have we accomplished? I raised this exact issue with a member of the Housing Oversight Task Force in October 2023, 18 months ago, and I was told, quote, the town is going to have to set this up to implement it. So they have to figure that out. Here we are 18 months later, and I haven't heard that the town has figured that out yet. Have you? It's a sincere question. I think many people would like to know what our legislators are doing to put some teeth in this zoning proposal so we don't just get more expensive housing. And the verification is not a one-time thing. It has to be done annually, collecting people's tax returns and making decisions on eligibility. Are the members of the town board signing up for that job, or who are you delegating it to? There's a county in California, Sonoma County, that had issues in the last decade with the implementation of their affordable housing regulations. A grand jury reported that agencies were overly reliant on self-reported information from property owners. It found that on-site inspections were rare, and it found that ineligible tenants were occupying affordable units. In other words, they had some teeth in their law, but they failed in the implementation. To the question of supply and demand. Some people say that a new zoning law, I'll go fast. Some people say a new zoning law will increase the supply of housing and that will make the cost come down. The principle of supply and demand works with councils.
Let me just ask one thing. How many people want to have comments that they want to make? Just a show of hands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so keep going.
Thank you.
We'll just go ahead.
When the first unit is built, does that bring the cost down? Of course it doesn't. How about 10 units? We have around 3,300 households in Woodstock, so I don't think 10 units will make a dent. Would 100 new units make a dent? I still don't think so. The principle of supply and demand works with pencils. We can plant more trees and double the supply pretty easily, and that brings the price down. But the boundaries of Woodstock are finite. The only way to solve the affordable housing crisis is to build more affordable housing. And I think the town board should scrap this effort of changing the zoning and focus very specifically on building affordable housing.
Thank you. Next, Alicia, did you want to?
Okay, I support what he says, but in addition to that, I also think there's this bill before the, I don't know if it's actually before the legislature yet, but I think it's called the REST Act. And what it would do is something that I've been asking the town supervisors to go to Albany and lobby for, and that's to make it possible for the small, municipalities like us to be able to have a housing authority. It doesn't have to be a big thing, it could be just something that's done by some of the town board members. And the thing is to have, at least in some zones, especially in and around the hamlet and around perhaps other hamlets in Woodstock, rent control. Now, some people don't like that term, but we have a problem with increasing rents here where people have been living there for 10, 20 years, including elderly people on fixed income. The rents are going up 20, 30, 50%. And that has to stop. That is what's causing a lot of problems. And that's.
Thank you.
So. So in terms of what I think we're here for, which is the conservation subdivision, chapter 202. When you look at the definitions, that's where it has affordable housing and the defined term affordable housing. So that when you use that term throughout the document, it shows there. In those on page 9, it would be. So the first part, article 4 definitions, affordable housing. The first one is correct and it has Ulster County AMI. Affordable housing units for sale, and then the next one under it, affordable housing units rental. They don't have the Ulster County, and I think that should be added there and anywhere else in the document. Or any of the other documents in terms of our proposed zoning. Also, with it comes to conservation subdivision, I think that we should have another look, and I can't seem to find it. On conservation, I think that that was one of the things that needed to be updated in terms of like a tennis court or swimming pool is not conservation. So that one, I think we should take another look at in our current zoning and just update it here. I think that was because that's part of the conservation subdivision. Otherwise, I think just in general terms, zoning is not going to create housing. It's not going to create affordable housing. That's not its job. It's not something you make and then it goes out and makes you housing. It's part of a tool in conjunction with other tools like community land trusts, keeping costs of housing on the land at perpetual what's the word, forever and ever at affordable. And they're the people that you want managing as a board that's a non-for-profit any of the housing. The town is not going to be landlords. So I think there's a lot of misinformation that we should just get a little more accurate about it.
Do you have that? Is that a document that you read off?
This is the document on your,
Oh, that's the.
actual document on the website.
That's right up.
I'll keep this brief. I haven't been through this document to the extent where I'm going to make an informed discussion about it. I just want to point to the fact that in the beginning of this document that I started reading today, was something. One of the first things it said is that this document was vetted through our comprehensive plan. to make sure that it addresses the town's priorities. So why do we have some of our laws looking like this? With an actual mechanism, and the rest of them
Michael.
might look like they were written by
Let's
Donald
stay on
Trump on the
202.
toilet at 3:30 in the morning.
Thank you, Michael.
It's an honest question.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
202, 202, 202, 202, third gentleman, suit and tie. You just give your name.
Sure, good evening Supervisor and members of the town board, Robert Gaudioso, and I submitted a letter dated April 7th. I think our biggest concern with the ordinance is actually the process. The secret process is paramount to the overall review of the proposed legislation, whether it's 202 or whether it's the zoning code. Specifically, this is a major experiment. This is a major change throughout your entire code. And the environmental impacts that could come from this are significant. And what I would ask is, where are you in the secret process? I reviewed the 88-page document. There's no red line against the existing code. There's the red line against the 2023 code. So it's impossible to really tell what the changes are against the existing code. But more importantly, where's the environmental assessment form? Where are you in the process? Has the town board declared itself lead agency? Have you made a secret determination? What I would say is that if you look at this under the secret regulations, there's no answer other than that there must be a positive declaration of the secret. This has to be reviewed through an environmental impact statement. Otherwise, piecemealing and segmenting the process, you will overlook alternatives. The EIS process is specifically designed to look at alternatives. Look at the impacts. Look at the impacts of what is changing from the existing code to the new code. Look at all the environmental impacts, how this will impact wetlands, how this will impact public services, how this will impact traffic. Every single impact under secret should be looked at, and then a determination should be made whether there are ways to look at alternatives that will mitigate those potential impacts to the greatest extent practicable. There could be alternatives that will result in the goal that you're looking for, as opposed to just saying that this is a hope that this will create affordable housing. There may be alternatives that have much less impact on the environment and on the community, but the only way to get to that answer is to go through the secret process properly, declare a positive declaration, have an environmental impact statement prepared, have all the supporting documents to either show that there are impacts or there are not impacts. If there are impacts, that they can be mitigated. And that's the only way for the public to have a fair opportunity to be able to digest all of these changes. Looking at these changes in a vacuum, section by section of the code, is impossible to grasp the overall impact. And to do otherwise would be illegal segmentation of the secret. So the path is there for you. That's the law. If you follow the law, if you have an environmental impact statement, there'll be significant transparency for the community to understand what the changes will result in as far as the impacts on the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
He said we, was he representing himself or somebody else? Sir,
Yes.
you said we, when you were referring to yourself, are you representing yourself or are you representing somebody else?
No, I have a client.
You have a client, you're
I'm
representing,
representing a concerned citizen of the town.
so are you a representative or are you an attorney?
I am an attorney.
So you're representing some anonymous person.
Correct.
Who you are now telling us is a member of the town.
Correct.
How do we know?
I did submit a letter. I submitted 2 letters, actually. I submitted a letter last year and I submitted a letter on April 7th that did detail that. Thank you.
Okay.
A letter detailing who your client
Who
is?
did you
No,
send this to?
that I was an attorney and that I had a client that was a resident of the town.
Who did you send this to?
I submitted it to the town board. The supervisor's aware of it. I submitted it to the town clerk.
He did not.
I'm sorry. I had asked that it be made part of the record when you adopted the pledge last year. And I asked that the second letter that I submitted on April 7th also be made part of this administrative record.
But again, you didn't say who.
Correct.
That's a fair question, I don't know.
Can you send that to the entire board?
Say the purpose or.
I submitted it through the town clerk, so I'm somewhat surprised that the town board did not receive my letters.
No, that was not received.
No, we need
Yeah.
to receive that.
Okay,
We send
there,
all of our emails.
okay.
Yeah,
so
just
I-
go onto the website, our email addresses are there, and email us individually as a town.
That would be.
That'll
Thank you.
all respond.
Yeah, I just wanted to make some clarification, attorney. Yeah, so Robert, I would like to make a couple of clarifications to what you said. One clarification is you said that all the changes are not identified. What I mentioned at our last meeting is to see all the changes, you actually need to go look at two documents. If you look at the zoning updates section of the town website, there's a list of documents, and the subdivision 202 actually has 4 documents. It has a marked up copy and a clean copy that was done earlier in 2023. And then based on feedback received by the Housing Oversight Task Force, they accepted all those comments and then made additional comments. So you actually would have needed to look at 2 marked up copies, the earlier in the year 2023 copy and the later in the year 2023 copy. You should then see all the markups. So I did want to clarify that.
Is there a way to provide one red line document of the existing code versus the code that's actually the subject of this public hearing?
Yeah, right now you have to look in 2 documents. Is there a way it would be manual? And it could happen, but it won't be happening in the next meeting. So it could happen. The other thing I did want to point out is the reason why we're doing this approach of one section at a time. I hear you when you say people should look at all of it together. That wasn't fruitful. We tried that a year ago and it really wasn't fruitful. It was too much to deal with. And so we're trying to focus on different parts of the document to help people, focus here and there. So before we're done, we'll be considering the whole thing in entirety. But
That's a
by trying to
broad
look at the whole thing in its entirety previously, it wasn't a fruitful conversation. So that's why we're trying to do it.
Yeah, I'm just
Broad
concerned that the
Again.
forest to be lost from the trees in this. There's just far too many changes when you repeal code check. You don't provide a clean red line of the original code versus the new code.
All right, this is not gonna be a conversation, thank you, sir.
Oh, it
Next, Gentlemen, gentlemen,
so deeply.
well, anybody in that row? The gentleman in the red shirt?
That one will remain in the hearing minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to get the road ahead of you. So, okay,
I'll bet it will.
I don't want to comment on the very particulars of the particulars. Most of you all know me as someone who started the Land Conservancy, and I did that when the zoning was being adopted in the 80s. And while my main interest is natural history, I think I have a minor in zoning and planning. And all of us have heard in the national media that low-income housing, that is to say, all-income housing that isn't astronomically expensive, whether in San Francisco or here or New York or Philadelphia, wherever you are, is in trouble all over the country. And part of this is because, as the New York Times reported, 25% of all single-family homes have been bought up by brokerage firms and partnerships. And the market between that and Airbnb, et cetera, has really crushed low-income housing, or as you might say, just modest housing. It's my personal opinion from listening to all that news and from all the reading I've done, that zoning cannot fix the housing crisis. I think the town should focus on working with Brubco. And zoning will just continue to be basically a mess. If somebody here, anybody, anywhere, has found a town that fixed their housing process through zoning, I'd like to hear it. I've done a bunch of searches online. I have not found one. There we go.
thank you, Gary. Thank you. Next in that row?
Yeah, I'm the last one on the road. Thank you. This is probably the 3rd time I've discussed this zoning document at a public hearing. And before it was a 300-page document that we were dealing with, and now we're down to just the site plan or this one section. I would have to say that on June 2, 2022, discussed several options, several problems with the document having to do with the open space requirements. First, that golf courses are now considered open space as under the terms of this document. And large-scale industrial residential septic systems are considered open space. I was assured by the Housing Oversight Task Force, Kirk Ritchie and Jeff Collins specifically, that well, that was a mistake and we're going to take that out. Well, that's still in the document. So it's still the golf course as an open space designation and the large scale septic pad system is still in the document as open space. And, you know, we looked at this document based essentially on the presentation that Xena Development gave for what they were planning to do with that property that they bought in Xena. And it looked like the zoning law as proposed would allow them to do what they were planning to do. The second issue that came up that we discussed had to do with the conservation easement. Now, the document allows a land trust to establish a conservation easement and enforcement, but that is just one of the three options. One of the options is to have the homeowners association enforce the conservation easement. Essentially, the homeowners association would define the conservation easement, get approval of it, and then it would become the enforcement mechanism for that. If you look at the Xena development, they're building a road, or they're getting permission to build a road through their property in Woodstock, and that'll be managed by a homeowners association, which is essentially established within the town of Hurley, or not Hurley, excuse me, Ulster, of those residents, and they would essentially become the homeowners association and the governing enforcement body for all the property in Woodstock. So it doesn't look like the document had really been updated based on decisions which had been made 2 years ago. I mean, I see in the current update, there's added in the Complete Streets Committee, but it doesn't look like it really included the changes that the agreement that the Housing Oversight Task Force had actually agreed to in this document. And I'm looking at the October 2024 version that's on the website. So I think you need another review to make sure it's really complete and up to date based on what had already been decided.
Thank you, Ken.
And then for CC, and then look for CC. Ed. You're gonna look.
In the back row, anybody? Lori?
I was making comments on what I've read throughout chapter 202. I found some interesting things. In Article 7, Section L, number 3, page 37, it is written, the applicant may also donate buildable land of such area within the subdivision to a housing trust or other housing-oriented nonprofit organization to accommodate the 15% set aside for affordable units. There should be a correction on this. The applicant may also donate buildable lands of area within the subdivision to a HUD approved housing trust. You have to have a HUD approval before you do this. Otherwise, you're going to get into some craziness. Then in Article 6, required improvements and performance guarantees for subdivision, section 202-22, determination of improvements to be required. The planning board shall be also consider and development of density and land uses that exist in the area around the land upon the subdivision is proposed. Well, the planning board didn't really correctly write this out. It should be the planning board should also consider the impacts. The impact is a very important word, and it is not in here. And if you had the word impact, it would change it and make it stronger. As is, there is no clarification on this. And throughout this document, as others previous before me said, have mentioned that there are many instances of vagueness of language throughout this document, which should be written, and it should be clarified and use better words to give the document some teeth, like a word like impact. Thank you.
Lloyd, do you have that? Can you give us a copy of that or email it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Next.
So before you even ask. Okay, so I documented and I took seriously what you had to say about it, but you wanted specific comments on specific sections. So I have three different things that I'm going to do. The first one is I want to talk about open space as it relates to conservation subdivisions. So on the first page, you will see, I'm sorry, because I'm different. I think on the document, I don't have it for everyone, but I'm going to just, if you'll give me a little time, I won't have to talk so fast, so people might even understand what I'm trying to say. I'm going to address primary conservation areas and secondary conservation areas. They are defined in the subdivision regulations. So I looked at these definitions and then I went through the law and I tried to figure out how they were being applied. And the way it seemed to me was it was mostly you look at this first and then you look at this second. So that didn't really satisfy me. So I went to the New York State Division of Local Government Services. They put out a subdivision review booklet. And they have pretty much clarified for me how this is supposed to work. A primary conservation area, and that's how it was divided up, as primary conservation area, secondary conservation area, are limited in inherently unbuildable wetlands, floodplains, and steep slopes. Secondary conservation areas are comprised of the best of the rest. Because the primary conservation areas would be off limits to development in conventional developments, they are not counted towards the minimum required open space percentage of conservation subdivisions. Therefore, 30 to 80% of the buildable land is usually designated as a secondary conservation area. So what that means is you take all the land, floodplains, wetlands, steep slopes, and you subtract them from the whole unit, the whole acreage. And then from there, you determine what your density can be and how much open space is required. But you start from subtracting. You subtract anything that is not buildable. Okay, so that is how primary and secondary conservation areas are supposed to work. That is not in the subdivision document, and it should be, because that's what we're interested in, and that's the whole purpose of a conservation subdivision. So alternately, in the zoning proposal to chapter 260, there was a proposal for net acreage. So I took the definition of net acreage from that, and it's the acreage on a parcel that remains after deducting the environmentally sensitive acreage from the total parcel acreage. This represents the net buildable acreage on that parcel from which housing density is to be calculated. So it's basically the same thing. You take away all the lands that are not buildable. So if you have a 20-acre parcel and 7 of those acres are wetlands or steep slopes, you have 13 acres left that are buildable. So that applies to minor subdivisions as well, not just major, which is where the conservation easements come in. So that doesn't appear either in the subdivision regulations, and it should. Because to me, the point of this is we're trying to protect Woodstock. Okay, so then there were some things that I think Ken mentioned. Walkways, play areas, recreation lands such as ball fields, golf courses, and parks should not be considered part of the required open space. I'm sorry, it should be considered part of the open space if it is open to the public. So if you want to make a public golf course, it says that can be considered open space, and it should not. Open space should be very clearly defined as land in its natural state. I think that's what we're looking for, right? Okay, that's on open space. Then I had, please remove these terms section. And they're having to do with things that are proposed in the zoning law that are not settled. And one of them is net acreage. And I think it's kind of a complicated question. Don't want to get into a big discussion about it, but it's something for us to think about. And for people who don't understand what that is, if you have a 10-acre parcel and you're in 5-acre zoning, you could make a 2-acre lot and an 8-acre lot. I'm not sure we want to go down that road. I think it could be a very slippery slope.
So I gave you sections, I hope I caught all of them, where I marked up where it appears, and I'd like to see them removed. The other thing I would like to see removed from the subdivision regulations is references to threeplexes and fourplexes. I think that threeplex and fourplex structures are meant for cities, not for rural areas, and I would like to see those removed. And again, another conversation, but I don't think they belong in the subdivision regulations. They really are meant for cities and urban areas. Okay, the last thing is just questions that I had about the affordable housing section. And there's a clause in there that if you are doing a major subdivision, you have to dedicate 15% of the units to affordable housing. So what would be allowed to be constructed as affordable housing? Once again, threeplexes and fourplexes. And I disagree with that also. I think that people deserve a house. And then the other thing that would be allowed would be accessory dwelling units. And to me, that is a very minimal contribution to affordable housing stock. I think that we could do better than that. And the last one was basically what Lori said, so I won't repeat it for everybody. But I do think that it's important for us to remember that this document is meant to protect us and our lands. And if we're going to do something like a conservation subdivision, I think that we should implement it to its in its broadest sense, and it will protect us the most.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a very informative evening. I'm extremely impressed with the dialogue that we don't hear very often delivered to the town board. I wanted to speak in more general terms rather than specific items which have been covered here, but with regards to preserving open space. I did some research and discovered that Woodstock is the only town in Ulster County, with the exception of Denning, that does not have an open space protection law. I find this incredible. I could have sworn that the Woodstock Land Conservancy has taken care of this many years ago. Apparently they did not. I think before you start cutting up subdivisions, creating, percentages of conservation land, etc. I think the first thing we need to do as a community is to create an open space protection law so that proper scoring is done of the most important sites in our community to preserve our character. To go about it without that protection is basically incremental. We're going to just cut the baby in half and keep cutting it in half, as they say in real estate parlance. I would also want to point out that the Woodstock Land Conservancy has done a wonderful job with certain parcels of land, that they have protected here in the town of Woodstock, particularly the Xena cornfield. Well, the Woodstock Land Conservancy pays no taxes on that conserved property. And they shouldn't have to pay taxes on that conserved property. What I would like to see the town consider is if I own 65 acres out in wherever, Xena, or, up on Hutchin Hill, and I want to permanently protect that property, put a conservation easement on it myself, I should be entitled to a tax exempt status. The homeowner should be allowed to save his property rather than be taxed on its development value, which in many cases forces people to sell or to subdivide. So 2 steps. One is, let's get back to the task force level. Let's start to look at creating an open space protection law. And at the same time, let's start to investigate what other towns are doing to preserve and protect their open spaces here in Ulster County. Let's talk to Wawarsing. Let's talk to Rochester. Let's talk to Stone Ridge, Marbletown. Let's Olive. They're way ahead of us. And I thought we were the environmental epicenter of Ulster County. We're not, we're the big behind. Okay? Thank you for that.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're gonna move to recess the public hearing for the zoning and subdivision amendments in,
Would like to make a comment. I know it bothers you sometimes.
well, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Okay.
In May, we will put forth the agenda for the,
For the zoning pieces.
yes, okay.
So so my comment is, well, first of all, I really appreciate the people, I know Jude and Ken and different people did speak to specifics in the law. Because as I saw chapter 202, a big focus on it is helping the environment. A lot of what was gonna go on with trying to help housing is in the 260 changes. And I did see, so as people spoke to, well, 202, the subdivision chapter didn't really do a lot for affordable housing. In working through the Housing Oversight Task Force, a lot of what we've done in 202 was because as we were working through the 260 changes, we said, gee, if we're gonna do these things, we wanna make sure it's environmentally smart the way we do it. And so there were changes. So the 202 was not, the goal of doing 202 was not affordable housing itself. It was kind of a byproduct of changing the 260 chapter, and then let's see if we can't be, let's be environmentally sound as we do these things. So, so I appreciate everybody's input. If I had a wish, I guess I wish I heard from everybody about how you felt about the environmental recommendations in 202, because I know I heard people say, well, it doesn't do enough for affordable housing. And in my view, really 260 was, again, that was where the weight of the affordable housing ideas were. And I would be interested to hear if people have more to say about how you feel about how well 202 did address the environmental aspect of making Woodstock better. And again, I appreciate, I know Jude focused on that, Ken focused on that. I think some others might have had some specific details, but the specific details were the most helpful, I think. So thank you.
With that, I'm gonna move on to public be heard. Peter?
Did you call?
Yes, public be heard.
Let me first ask, is anyone else who is going to speak on the noise ordinance that is probably be heard first? Felicia? Yeah, all right, otherwise I will not save my comment until next week. My name is Claire Keith.
Claire, can you come up here, please?
Yeah, the microphone's over there.
Next to the.
Yes, right over here,
Yes.
please.
That way the audience on Zoom can hear you.
So where should I stand?
Right here.
Right here?
That's fine, thank you.
All right, my name is Claire Keith. I represent the many people who have not really been heard, who have been extraordinarily affected up in the hills and elsewhere by the amplified music that began during COVID. This has not been resolved. The fact that it's still painfully in progress shows that it was not founded on a sound thing. So I'm gonna first say that this is a collective statement on the part of many people. 7 of them are here tonight, but I asked them to go home. There was no point. Once I knew that there was going to be a hearing, then they're going to save their voices until next time. The other thing I wanted to say quickly is that I personally would like to lodge a protest in the way the announcement for the noise ordinance topic was circulated in the past 10 days. It was a moving target, which makes it very difficult for people to show up and know what to expect. I hope we're going to do better next time. My third point is that since we have not been heard, we have found a website called keepwoodstockpeaceful.org. I will encourage people to see it. I will quickly list the major points I have about this noise ordinance that we have. First, I'd like to acknowledge something wonderful that Laura Ricky said about a couple of weeks ago. She said, before you change laws, make sure you don't break anything. I very much agree with that. I feel that our representative on the task force were placed under an undue and illegitimate political pressure because of the foundation of this task force. Those are well documented on our website. But as a result, the discussion was started not on the laws that we have, which were never considered, but on a very enthusiastic wish list by the most important venue who would like to see herself develop. So that is a problem. I think we need to go back and consider the foundation of the law and then determine from there where we go. Do not break it when it worked, and it has worked for 5 decades admirably. Second point,
The problem is one of scalability. The noise ordinance from the beginning was designed and supported around the real business model and layout of one particular venue, a very beloved venue, but it has its own model. And everything in that noise ordinance appears to me that to be designed to answer the needs of that venue. But because we needed to project a sense of fairness, and it's, when in fact this was originally started for that one venue, that means that we're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And that means that once this proliferate, we have tons of little venues. By now we're starting with, we have no definition really for a music venue, because you have you have concert at the Kleinets indoors, they should be allowed to go out now. We have concert at the
15 seconds.
very well. The last point was one of topography. To this day, we have never acknowledged, and neither does this ordinance, the fact that 70 or 75 decibel travels up the hill a mile up, and that there will never be acknowledgement or enforcement possible for the true distress and nuisance caused by those apparently moderate decibels. Thank you.
Annie?
No, I was just gonna ask, did you have 8 people who signed up already?
No.
Okay, could I put my name on the list? I'm sorry, I didn't see the sheet at the beginning of the meeting.
Can you have my name?
Put my name on the list, too.
We're getting close to 8.
Hold on.
So I'm coming to see if all of you are interested to have the TV station continue. Because it doesn't seem that there is a budget for it, even though everybody in Woodstock pays for it. In your bills, you are charged a fee so that the TV station, can function. It seems that here, I don't know, I talked to you, I don't know what you want to do. I would like to have a vote of all of you to see if you want the TV to continue or what do you want to do. Because right now, there is a problem at the TV station, and I cannot get a technician because there is no money so that the person can be paid to really come and fix the problem. So I would like to know to whom do I talk? I don't know whom to talk about this issue because nobody responds to it. Because right now the TV is not responding and we need a technician and that has to be fixed now. Everybody, I guess, do you agree to have it? Do you agree to have a channel, a local access TV? Huh? Okay, so that's one of the issues that I want to really find out, from all of you, if do you want the TV station, the local access TV to continue to go on, if you can use the budget that the whole town pays for it to pay the salaries for people that are keeping the station, and when people come and fix it, to be paid too. That we need to know. I am a person now that I am volunteering, but I don't know what to tell the people. If I need a technician, I don't know what to tell them because, they need to be paid. Okay? So that's one issue. The other issue is that you are fixing Wittenberg Road, and I don't understand why it has to be fixed, the 2 roads at the same time. Why it cannot be fixed? Half of it, and then the other half, so that people can drive, to town, because otherwise, like me, and there are my neighbor, for example, that she had an accident and she has she cannot walk, so she depends on people to come and bring her food and take her to the hospital. They have to take all around, on the other side, Glenford Road to Yachty. So I would appreciate that they fix one side and let people come on the other side. You do that here in town. You don't stop the traffic on both sides. It's on one side or on the other side. So I would appreciate that you do that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Journey.
Thank you, Fanny. Actually, I agree with Fanny, and I'm also here to address the board and ask you guys to move, with the notion that we do hire a technician for the public access TV. I believe that is so rooted in our community that, one thing leads to another, the arts, the youth center, to get it back up and running. I get the sense that nobody really wants it. However, it would be great to get it back on live TV, your meetings, because half the people that need to know about it, of everything that was covered tonight, would be so advantageous to the people. You guys were talking about a couple weeks ago about getting a technician for your website. So why don't you have him start to come over? That place it's very exciting. It needs a little love and care. And I like to be able to be a liaison between the youth center that we do have right now. And you guys are even considering spending $2 million on the youth center, but you have people kind of in the field. So I'm gonna say enough of that. So please send somebody over. We need it for the arts and the musicians and political reasons. And the other thing is thank you, Claire. I love what she was saying. You have to forgive me. I did not get briefed on the latest thing of the sound ordinance. I agree with you very much on what happened from 1966 to COVID during music of Woodstock, the whole international music scene. How did we survive with the Joyous Lake, Tinker Street, Sled Hill? Why didn't people complain? I would like people to revamp that whole situation. I guess I have to do the research myself. I would move to hire another sound scientist, a technician. Sometimes digital music PAs are very irritating on the ear. I've done years of study with it. Perhaps get a new PA. I don't agree with Claire on the fact that it's just Lily, because I also speak for hundreds of thousands of people that I've been busking with for almost a million years here in Woodstock, that they come here to see the music. They come to see people on the green. Perhaps we could get a compromise where we have a zoning situation. And Paul Shotis recently told me that the measurement is now in the hands of the cops to make that determining factor. I don't know if that is a proper placement of power and data collection for the sound scientists. It's a joyful noise. So I'm gonna do my homework next time, figure out why these people are having a hard time with the music in the hills. At the same time, I'm like, what is wrong with hearing music in the hills? It would stop. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Lori. No, I'm sorry, Lori Belmer?
Who's gone?
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Do we have a mic tonight or is it just right here? Okay, so hi, everybody. Thank you. I just wanted to first, I echo Fanny's sentiments. I think that, working with the TV station to get the public town board meetings on public access would be great. Secondly, I do also want to say thank you for reopening the discussion about the noise ordinance. That's really important. I do want to say I think it's unfortunate that we're having this conversation now in spring, right before summer, instead of having this conversation over the winter. Time has come and passed, but I do think it would have been better to have this conversation prior so that we aren't rushed in these conversations. I think that a lot of people have a lot to say, and the most productive use of our time is giving ourselves enough time to have reasonable and appropriate conversations. And my concern at this point is that we're going to rush ourselves into a situation where nobody has the appropriate space or ability to advocate for what they really want to advocate for. I will echo Anula's concerns. I think there are a lot of issues that need to be spoken to further. I will certainly speak more to them on the 19th for the public hearing. But that's or 13th, I'm sorry. I'll speak more to that on the 13th, but that's my concern for the time being. And I hope going forward with other issues that we can make sure we give ourselves enough time as a community to actually be able to talk about these things reasonably. Thank you.
Lori.
Hi, thank you. As a member of the Youth Center Task Force, I just wanted to reiterate that the task force is fully in support of having the public decide and putting the matter to a public vote. I think that that's the proper way to proceed. And I want to also just make the public aware, and the board, you probably do know this, but if the existing youth center is torn down and rebuilt in place, our architect Finney Associates has told us that would be 12 to 14 months where the kids who go to the youth center will not have a building to go to. So we could lose a lot of kids could slip through the cracks during that time. So I think that's a very important consideration because we are supposed to be here primarily for the kids. And that's where our hearts lie. I also just did want to reflect that if you open up the town board website right now, the sound ordinance and the youth center task force discussion are not on the agenda. So in the effort to build trust with the community and greater transparency, I would really like to call attention to that. I think it would behoove all of us if these things could be on the agenda as early as Friday, even in a temporary agenda, because otherwise it just doesn't look good. So thank you.
I don't think I'd say this for the hearing, but I would do it now, so this way you can get on there. And of course, the town clerk has a copy of this. This is the agreement of the Woodstock Community Drum Circle with the town of Woodstock, including the judges, the police department, and the drum circus people. And I think it's important that I thank you, Adora, for wanting to protect the drum circle and buskers. And I don't know what's on, haven't had a chance to look at the proposed sound ordinance as it is now. But that should be as an addendum on there. Plus it should say that so long as the drum circle exists, even if the people who are signers on that original agreement are no longer here for one reason or another, that the agreement should still be there. Also, it's important that buskers be protected. And at the drum circle, sometimes we have people with little amps. And that should also be something that it doesn't cause a problem now, and it shouldn't be considered a problem in the future, nor should it be like that the sound ordinance is vague enough that that would be
Yeah, busking's in there and the drum circle is in there.
Those made it in.
subject to the discretion of the property business owners. And provided does not cause nuisance or distress to neighboring businesses or residential neighbors. In other words, somebody makes a complaint, it could be shut down.
But busking.
So there has to be something, yeah, so it has to be something more definitive with that. And also I want to support Fanny Cruzant and other people and Journey Blue Heaven. With the TV station, it needs to be repaired. It's been out of repair for a while, difficult to operate. And it used to be great when there's a camera there and with microphones and, you know, people could be, because I don't know if I should face this way for people on Zoom or if I should, you know, it used to be we can try it here. And more people can see it. There's some people don't have the internet and they can see it on the public access in rotation as well, not just live. And it also is a good way of keeping records. You mentioned Spectrum, something about a franchise agreement. Spectrum is supposed to provide a certain amount of money, and I don't know if it's still up around $130,000 because people have been leaving Spectrum all over the place. But still, the town gets a bunch of money from Spectrum for that franchise. Why is there always this cutback on each budget, cutting it down from 5,000 to 2,500? What is it now? They keep doing it. It's 2,000.
3 minutes are up. Thank you. Last but not least, Michael Beach.
Thanks, Bill. I could have saved you the trouble here if you just mentioned that tree committee will be planting a tree on Arbor Day, which is this Friday.
How the hours?
Well, oh, thanks. It's gonna be at 1:30 on Friday afternoon. Somewhere on the great lawn of the Playhouse. It's a memorial tree. The money has been donated to the town. And this year, again, for the second year, we'll be hopefully getting a visit from the elementary school. They came last year. We must have had, I don't know, 125 kids. And it was just a beautiful afternoon, a wonderful experience. politicians, no speeches, but everyone is invited. Okay, it's not a political event, but everyone is invited to celebrate the planting of a new tree in Woodstock. This will be the 26th tree planted by the Woodstock Tree Committee since we began in 2014.
There was no like sign-in, there was no here.
I
I'll say it to you after, because this is a good, I just wanted the people, like, there's such a music
Thank you.
situation.